Hello, my dear students. Welcome to Teacher at Home. Today, class, we are going to start the sixth chapter, devotional part to divine. You may have seen people perform rituals of worship, singing bhajans, kirtans, and qawwalis, or even repeating the name of God in silence, and notice that some of them are moved to tears. Such intense devotion of love of God is the legacy of various kinds of bhakti Sufi movements that have evolved since the 18th century. Idea of supreme God. Before our kingdoms emerged, different groups of people worshipped their own gods and goddesses. As people were brought together through the growth of towns, trade, and empires, new ideas began to develop. Idea that all living things pass through countless cycles of birth and rebirth, performing good deeds and bad, came to be widely accepted. Similarly, the idea that all human beings are not equal even at birth gained ground during their spirit. Belief that social privileges came from birth in a noble family or a high caste was the subject of many learned texts. Many people were uneasy with such ideas and turned to the teachings of the Buddha or the Jainas, according to which it was possible to overcome social differences and break the circle of rebirth through personal effort. Others felt attracted to the idea of the Supreme God who could deliver humans from such bondage if approached with devotion or bhakti. This idea, advocated in the Bhagavad Gita, grew in popularity in the early centuries in the Common Era. Shiva, Vishnu, and Durga, as supreme deities, came to be worshipped through elaborate rituals. At the same time, gods and goddesses worshipped in different areas came to be identified with Shiva, Vishnu, and Durga. In the process, local myths and legends became a part of the Puranic stories, and methods of worship recommended in the Puranas were introduced in the local cults. Eventually, the Puranas also laid down it was possible for devotees to receive the grace of God regardless of their caste status. Idea of bhakti became so popular that even Buddhists and Jainis adopted these beliefs. A new kind of bhakti in South India, Nainas and Alvas. The 7th to 9th centuries saw the emergence of new religious movements led by the Nainas, saints devoted to Shiva, and Alvas, saints devoted to Vishnu, who came from all castes, including those considered untouchable like the Pulayar and the Panas. They were sharply critical of the Buddhists and the Jainas and preached ardent love of Shiva and Vishnu as the path of salvation. They drew upon the ideals of love and heroism as found in the Sangam literature, the earliest example of Tamil literature composed during the early centuries of the Common Era, blended them with the values of bhakti. The Nainas and Alvas went from place to place, composing exquisite poems in praise of the deities enshrined in the villages they visited and set them to music. Nainas and Alvas. There were 63 Nainas who belonged to different caste backgrounds, such as potters, untouchable workers, peasants, hunters, soldiers, brahmanas, and chiefs. The best known among them are Appar, Sambandar, Sundarar, and Manikyawa Sagar. There were two sets of compilations of their songs, Tevaram and Tiruvakazam. There were 12 alvas who came from equally divergent backgrounds, the best known being Periyalvar, his daughter Andal, Tondara Dipodi Alvar, and Namalvar. Their songs were compiled in the Divya Prabandham. Between the 12th and the 10th centuries, the Chola and Pandya kings built elaborate temples around many of the shrines visited by the same poets, strengthening the links between the Bhakti tradition and the temple worship. This was also the time when their poems were compiled. Besides hagiographies of religious biographies of the Alvas and Nayanas were also composed. Today we use the text as sources for writing histories of the Bhakti tradition. Devotee and the Lord is the composition of Manikava Sagar. Into my wild body of flesh, who came as though it were a temple of gold, and soothed me wholly and saved me, O Lord of grace, O gem most pure, sorrow and birth and death and illusion. You took from me and set me free, O bliss, O light, I have taken refuge in you, and never can I part from you. Philosophy and Bhakti. Shankara, one of the most influential philosophers of India, was born in Kerala in the 8th century. He was an advocate of Advaita or the doctrine of the oneness of the individual soul and the supreme God, which is the ultimate reality. He thought that Brahman, the only ultimate reality, was formless and without any attributes. He considered the world around us as an illusion of Maya and preached reunification of the world and adoption of the path of knowledge to understand the true nature of Brahman and attain salvation. Ramanuja, born in Tamil Nadu in the 11th century, was deeply influenced by the Alvas. According to him, the best means of attaining salvation was through intense devotion to Vishnu. Vishnu, in his grace, helps the devotee to attain the bliss of union with him. He propounded the doctrine of Vishishtadvaita or qualified oneness in the soul even when united with the Supreme God remained distinct. Ramanuja's doctrine greatly inspired the new strand of Bhakti which developed in North India subsequently. Basavanna's Veerashaivism. We noted earlier the connection between the Tamil Bhakti movement and the temple worship. This in turn led to a reaction that is best represented in the Shaiva movement initiated by Basavanna and his companions like Allama Prabhu and Kamaha Devi. This movement began in Karnataka in the mid 12th century. The Veerashaivas argued strongly for the equality of all human beings and against Brahminical ideas about caste and the treatment of women. They were also against all forms of ritual and ideal worship. Veerashaiva Vajanas. These are Vajanas of sayings attributed to Basavanna. The rich will make temples for Shiva. What shall I, a poor man, do? My legs are pillars, the body the shrine, the head a cupola of gold. Listen, O Lord of the meeting rivers. Things standing shall fall, but the moving ever shall stay. Bhakti movement in the Deccan. From the 13th to the 17th centuries, Maharashtra saw a great number of saint poets whose songs in simple Marathi continue to inspire people. Most immortal among them were Dhaneshwar, Namdev, Eknath, and Tukaram, as well as the women like Sakuba and the family of Chokamela, who belonged to the untouchable Mahar caste. This regional tradition of bhakti focused on the Vithala, a form of Vishnu temple in Pandharpur, as well as on the notion of the personal God residing in the hearts of all people. The saint poets rejected all forms of ritualism, outward display of piety, and social differences based on birth. In fact, they even rejected the idea of renunciation and preferred to live with their families, earning their livelihood like any other person while humbly serving fellow human beings in need. A new humanist idea emerged as they instead insisted that bhakti lay in sharing others' pain. As the famous Gujarati saying Nasi Mehta said, they are Vaishnavas who considered the pain of others. Questioning the social order. This is an Abhang, Marathi devotional hymn of Saint Tukaram. He who identifies with the battered and the beaten, mark him as a saint, for God is with him. He holds every forsaken man close to his heart. He treats his slave as his own son. Says Tuka, I won't be tired to repeat again, such a man is God in person. Here is an abang composed by Chogamela's son, who made us low caste. Why don't you face that fact, great Lord? Our whole life left our food eat. You should be ashamed of this. We have eaten in your home. How can you deny it? Choka's son, Karmamela asked, why did you give me life? Nath Pandits, Siddhas, and Yogis. A number of religious groups that emerged during this period criticized the ritual and other aspects of conventional religion and the social order using simple logical arguments. Among them were the Nath Pandits, Siddhacharas, and Yogis. They advocated renunciation of the world. To them, the path of the salvation lay in meditation on the formless, ultimate reality and the realization of oneness with them. To achieve this, they advocated intense training of the mind and the body through the practices like yogasanas, breathing exercise, and meditation. These groups became particularly popular among low caste Their criticism of conventional religion created the ground for devotional religion to become a popular force in northern India. Islam and Sufism. The Sands had much in common with the Sufis, so much so that it is believed that they adopted many ideas of each other. Sufis were Muslim mystics. They rejected outward religiosity and emphasized love and devotion to God, compassion towards all fellow human beings. Islam propagated strict monotheism, a submission to one God. In the 8th and 9th centuries, religious scholars developed different aspects of the holy law, Shariat, and the theology of Islam. While the religion of Islam gradually became more complex, Sufis provided it with an additional dimension that favored a more personal devotion of God. Sufis often rejected the elaborate rituals and codes of behavior demanded by Muslim religious scholars. They sought union with God, such as the lover seeker seeks his beloved with a disregard for the world. Like the same poet, the Sufis too composed poems expressing their feelings and a rich literature in prose, including anecdotes and fables, developed around them. Among the great Sufis of Central Asia were Ghazali, Rumi, and Sadi. Like the Nandpadis, Siddhas, and Yogis, the Sufis too believed the heart can be trained to look at the world in a different way. They developed elaborate methods of training using Sikhir, chanting a name of a sacred formula, contemplation, sama, singing, raqs, dancing, discussions of parables, breath control, etc., under the guidance of a master of prayer. The Samad Silsilas, a spiritual genealogy of Sufi teachers, each following a slightly different method, tarika of instruction and ritual practice. A large number of Sufis from Central Asia settled in Hindustan from the 11th century onwards. This process was strengthened with the establishment of the Delhi Sultanate. When several major Sufi centers developed all over the subcontinent, the Chishti Silsila was one among the most influential orders. It had a long line of teachers like Khwaja Muhyiddin Chishti of Ajmer, Qutbuddin Bakhtiyar Kaki of Delhi, Baba Farid of Punjab, Khwaja Nizamuddin Aulia of Delhi, and Bandavas Gisudaras of Gulbarga. The Sufi masters held their assemblies in their khangas of hospices. Devotees of all descriptions, including members of the royalty and nobility, and ordinary people flocked to these khankas. They discussed spiritual matters, sought the blessing of the saints in solving their worldly problems, or simply attended the music and dance sessions. Often, people attributed Sufi masters with miraculous powers that could relieve others to their illnesses and troubles. The tomb of Dargah or a Sufi saint became a place of pilgrim to which thousands of people of all faiths thronged, finding the Lord. Jalaluddin Rumi was a great 13th century Sufi poet from Iran who wrote in Persian. Here is an excerpt from his work. He was not on the cross of Christians. I went to the Hindu temples. In none of them was there any sign. He was not on the heights or in the lowlands. I went to the Kaaba of Mecca. He was not there. I asked him about him from Avicenna the philosopher. He was beyond the range of Avicenna. I looked into my heart. In this place I saw him. He was in no other place. New religious developments in North India. The period after the 13th century saw a new wave of the Bhakti movement in North India. This was an age when Islam, Brahminical Hinduism, Sufism, various strands of Bhakti, and the Nadpaths, Siddhas, and Yogis influenced one another. We saw that new kingdoms were merging and people were taking up new professions and finding new rules for themselves. Such people, especially craft persons, peasants, traders, and laborers, thronged to listen to these new saints and spread their ideas. Some of them, like Kabir and Baba Guru Nanak, rejected all orthodox religions. Others, like Tulsidas and Sudas, accepted existing belief practices but wanted to make this accessible to them. Tulsidas conceived of God in the form of Rama. Tulsidas' composition, the Ramacharitamanasa, written in Awadhi, a language used in eastern Uttar Pradesh, is important both as an expression of his devotion as a literary work. Sudas was an ardent devotee of Krishna. His composition compiled in the Sursagara, Sursaravali and Sahitya Lahari expresses his devotion. Also contemporary was Shankaradeva of Assam, late 15th century, who emphasized devotion to Vishnu, composed poems and plays in Assamese. He began the practice of setting up namgas of houses of recitation and prayer and practice that continue to date. This tradition also included saints like Dadu Dayal, Ravidas and Mirabai. Mirabai was a Rajput princess married into a royal family of Mewar in the 16th century. Mirabai became a disciple of Ravidas, a saint from a caste considered untouchable. She was a devotee to Krishna and composed innumerable bhajans expressing her intense devotion. Her songs also openly challenged the norms of the upper caste and became popular with the masses in Rajasthan and Gujarat. A unique feature of most of the saints is that their works were composed in regional languages and could be sung. They became immensely popular and were handed down orally from generation to generation. Usually, the poorest, most deprived communities and women transmitted these songs, often adding their own experiences. Thus, the song as we have known today are as much creation of the saints of generations of people who sang them. They have become a part of our living popular culture. That is, an important contribution of Bhakti saints was towards the development of music. Jayadeva of Bengal composed Gita, Govinda in Sanskrit. Each song composed in a particular raga and thala. Significant impact is that saints had a music was the use of bhajan, kirtan and abhang. The songs which emphasized an emotional experience had a tremendous appeal to the common people. Ranaji, I have left your norms of shame and false decorum of the princely life. I have left your town, and yet, Rana, why have you kept up enmity against me? Rana, you gave me a cup of poison. I drank it laughing. Rana, I will not be destroyed by you, and yet, Rana, why have you kept up enmity against me? Closer look Kabir. Kabir, who probably lived in the 15th 16th centuries, was one of the most influential saints. He was brought up in a family of Muslim Julahas or weavers, settled in or near the city of Benares, Varanasi. We have little reliable information about his life. We get to know of his ideas from a vast collection of verses called Shakis and Pads, said to have been composed by him and sung by wandering bhajan singers. Some of these were later collected and preserved in the Guru Granth Sahib, Panjwani, and Bijag. In search of the true Lord. Here is a composition of Kabir. O Allah, Ram present in all living beings, have mercy on your servants, O Lord. Why bump your head on the ground? Why bath your body in water? You kill and you call yourself humble, but your vices you conceal. 24 times the Brahmanas keeps the Ekadashi fast while the Quasi observes the Ramzan. Tell me, why does he set aside the 11 months to speak spiritual truth in the 12th? He dwells in the east, they say, and Allah resides in the west. Search for him in your heart. In the heart of your heart, there he dwells, Ram, Rahim, and Ram. Kabir's teachings were based on complete, indeed vehement rejections of the major religions' traditions. His teachings openly ridiculated all forms of external worship of both Brahminical Hinduism and Islam and the preeminence of the precise priestly classes and the caste system. This language of his poetry was a form of spoken Hindi widely understood by ordinary people. He also sometimes used cryptic languages which is difficult to follow. Kabir believed in the formless supreme God and preached that only path to salvation was through bhakti or devotion. Kabir drew his followers from among both Hindus and Muslims. A closer look Baba Guru Nanak. We know more about Baba Guru Nanak than about Kabir. Born at Talwandi, he traveled widely before establishing a center at Kartarpur. A regular worship that consisted of his following of his own hymns was established there for his followers. Irrespective of the former creed, caste, or gender, his followers ate together in the common kitchen. The sacred space thus created by Guru Nanak was known as Dharmashal. It is now known as Gurudwara. Before his death in 1539, Baba Guru Nanak appointed one of his followers as his successor. His name was Lehna, but he came to be known as Guru Agnad, signifying that he was a part of Baba Guru Nanak himself. Guru Agnad compiled the compositions of Baba Guru Nanak, to which he added his own in a new script known as Gurumukhi. The three successors of Guru Anand also wrote under the name of Nanak, and all of their compositions were compiled by Guru Arjan in 1604. To these compilations were added the writings of other figures like Sheikh Farid Saint Kabir, Bhagat Namdev, and Guru Tegh Bahadur. In 1706, these compilations were authenticated by Guru Tegh Bahadur's son and successor Guru Gobind Singh. It is now known as Guru Granth Sahib, the holy scripture of the Sikhs. The number of Baba Guru Nanak followers increased through the 16th century under his successors. They belonged to a number of castes, but traders, agriculturists, artisans, and craftsmen predominated. This may have something to do with Baba Guru Nanak's insistence that his followers must be householders and should adopt productive and useful occupations. They were also expected to contribute to the general funds of the community of followers. By the beginning of the 17th century, the town of Ramdaspura, Amritsar, had developed around the central Gurudwara called Harmandir Sahib. It was virtually self-governed. It was virtually self-governing, and modern historians refer to the early 17th century Sikh community as a state within the state. The Mughal Emperor Jahangir looked upon them as a political threat, and he ordered the execution of Guru Arjan in 1606. The Sikh movement began to get politicized in the 17th century, a development which culminated in the institution of the Khalsa by Guru Gobind Singh in 1699. Community of the Sikhs called the Khalsa Path became a political entity. The changing historical situation during the 16th and 17th century influenced the development of the Sikh movement. Ideas of Baba Guru Nanak had a huge impact on its development from very beginning. He emphasized the importance of the worship of one God. He insisted that caste, creed, and gender was irrelevant for attaining liberation. His idea of liberation was not that of a state of inert bliss, but rather the pursuit of active life from a strong sense of social commitment. He himself used the terms Nam, Dham, and Isnan for the essence of his teaching. We actually meant right worship, welfare of others, and purity of a conduct. His teachings are now remembered as Nam Japna, Kirtakarna, and Vandchakana, which also underline the importance of right belief and worship, honest living, and helping others. Thus, Baba Guru Nanak's idea of equality had social and political implications. This might partly explain the difference between the history of the followers Baba Guru Nanak and the history of the followers of other religious figures of the medieval centuries, like Kabir, Ravidas, and Dadu, whose ideas were similar to that of Baba Gurudev. So that's all about this chapter. If you are interested, please do like, share, and subscribe my channel. Okay, thank you.